Alright, I've been playing around with a lot of the foil types of Brilliance Inks compositions, and I thought I would do something that came to mind, which is the use of this column. I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this kind of foil type of composition here with a little bit of a, I don't know, whatever, architectural twist, I guess you could say. Alright, so I'm doing a moon in here. We're going to do it in Brilliance White. If you haven't seen these videos before, I always mention that if you're going to be doing something on the foil types of things, you need an ink that's going to dry, set on there, or have the ability to be set. If you don't have the Brilliance inks, you can use something like a StazOn, potentially. StazOn, I don't know if you can really kind of spread it around, though. I do have a StazOn pigment ink, a white one. They might have black too, but I've tried to blend this around like I'm doing here with the Brilliance, and this thing just dries so fast, but I don't know. I'm always hesitant to say something won't work because I don't know, there's probably different foils out there. Maybe some are a little bit more porous. I don't know. I haven't seen any that that are very porous at all. But you know, I don't have 5 different brands or something like that either, so I'm not really sure. Okay, I'm trying to get a decent rip here, kind of a nice varied one. And I think I have a couple here that I can use. What I'm doing is I'm going to be doing some cloud structures in the back here, which will be the background for the scene. And I need to get a little bit of cloud variation in here. Okay. And I like the clouds going in front of my moon too, in addition to the sides. So I'll just put this paper towel right over the top of the moon. And what I'm going here for is kind of a varied application of this ink. Okay, I want it a little bit lighter in some areas and a little bit darker in other areas. So that has to do with the amount of application that we're doing. Okay, the denser you apply the white pigment ink, the lighter it's going to be, right? All right, so that's a little bit of a cloud in front of the moon. You can do some clouds in back of the moon too. That wouldn't be how it is, out in nature, but we're not necessarily dealing with nature here. We're dealing with a visual. You're treating. I always tell people that we're kind of treating these pieces as if it were kind of like a stage production, and you're doing kind of stage set direction, I guess you could say. Set direction, lighting direction. If we're trying to just replicate things that are going on in the real world, it's really limiting, okay? If you think of yourself as like a set director, though, where you're in control of light, props, lighting, multiple lighting too, not just one, like in this case the moon, you're going to open up so many more possibilities for yourself. And you're going to make a world that's just the way it should be. It's a self-contained universe, okay? Not absent of anything, okay? It's complete in itself, okay? All right, now after I add these clouds down, what I do is I kind of extend them out. But what I like to do is I like to add additional layers of clouds, okay? So you can just go like this, and then you move down, and then you have another bank of clouds. You can also keep your stencil, in this case it's just a torn paper towel, moving. Okay, so you can kind of go like that, move it over. You don't have to just stay in one area like a plastic stencil. And when you do that, I feel it comes out a little bit more organic because clouds, I mean, they're moving. They might be moving very slow in some cases, but they're moving with the air, so it just makes it a little bit more kind of organic. And again, it's not because we're trying to replicate nature, but I would say that whatever you're trying to do, if you're making a tree or if you're making a cloud, we're trying to capture the spirit of something, okay? But we're not bound by the physics of it, in the real world or something like that. So something like this, I'm going in freehand now, and if you notice, I'm going above my stencil, okay? Which is the cloud, that border right there. And that way I'm getting that kind of that hazy look. See, that's where it was, but then I'm going above it like that. See how that kind of adds that extra little bit of what, clouds represent. It's that illuminated kind of vapor. So my clouds are kind of glowing now. They're not so hard and fixed. Okay? All right, you can't beat the price of these stencils here. Hey, I love the plastic stencils too, don't get me wrong. They have a real stylized look to them, and I think they're really cool. But I would suggest you try both, Or you use those stencils in conjunction with something a lot more organic so you get the contrast going between the two, right? Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, now I'm going to stamp a little figure down here. Okay. So I need to illuminate this area down here because I'm going to be stamping a black impression over this dark area. And if I just go black onto this, dark blue, we won't be able to really see the image, okay? So I need to kind of set a foundation of some lighter tones, okay? It almost looks like clouds down here. It's like a little, I don't know, ghostly vision or something like that. Not that I'm making a spooky scene or something like that. Okay, so not only do I go above the cloud, but I'm bringing the cloud down a little bit, so I'm tapering it off down this way too. So you kind of have to blend it out. And one of the things too, when you start applying this type of ink on here, it is wet. I can go like this and just wipe that completely off. But what this does is, when it's wet, and when you're dabbing it down, sometimes you can kind of do that, but you'll get the feeling that you're almost kind of removing ink, okay? So I'm letting this kind of set up in here. And I mean, it doesn't take long. By the time I'm down here, I can go back up here. It's not like I have to wait hours or something like that, but you can kind of build up more, okay? So if it's not getting light enough, what you do is you just let it set for a bit, and then you go back to it, okay? And it just starts setting, and it, drying by evaporation and whatnot. And it allows you to build up a lighter application of the ink over the top of it. You can build up more, okay? Does that make sense? Because when you're going wet into wet, there's only so much that will transfer over, okay, before it starts to be where you're almost removing it. When it gets drier on here than the applied ink on the surface, it starts to go back in here. I don't know. You can keep applying more, but what I like to do is I like to apply kind of a drier touch too. All right, so I don't want to just keep going like this, because then I'll be kind of applying blobs of ink. So in other words, you just kind of build it up. Just take it easy. I mean, this whole thing didn't take very long, and it's like my whole lighting scheme is practically done for the entire card. So we're not talking a ton of time. Okay, I'm going to put these columns here on the side. Okay, but these columns, if I place one right here, this is going to be right side illuminated. The one over here is going to be left side illuminated because the lighting is coming from right here. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to test my stamp placement ability. Okay, I'm going to I don't know, just take any type of little pencil or something like that, and okay, I just have like a tiny little mark there. It's barely in the page. Oh, let me see. Okay, yeah, that should do it. Oh, let me see. I need two of these marks, I forgot. These columns are slightly tapered, okay? So going down right here. All right, so I have a point there and point there. I just did a tiny little dot, it's barely visible. in the on the paper. And let's take our mask. Okay, let me see if I can see that now. Where do they go? I did it where they're so barely visible. Okay. Right here. And right here. Okay. Now I'm not doing this whole area right in here, but I'll show you what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go like this. This is one of those things, in theory, I think it'll work, but in application we'll see how well I can place this. When I'm placing these columns, I'm not really too worried about it. Okay, that's going to be the lighting on that side of that column, and on the column, I mean, it depends how high that I stamp this up here. It'll be like this, so I'm going to extend this over a little bit at the top of the column. I forgot that what that's called, the official name for that top of the column. We had to learn all that stuff in art history when I was in school. Okay, and here is that, and I'm putting a little bit of a harder dot here. Okay, so I have 2 dots there. Those are my... Yeah, I think I got the positioning wrong. It doesn't have to be exact, is what I say. I don't want to have to be exact in anything that I do. A lot of people hold themselves, that being said, to some sort of notion of kind of exactness. I can get where that comes into play, though. It's if you've been stamping with a lot of outline designs. Now, the columns are somewhat outline, okay? If I stamp something out like that column and I wanted to put something behind it, I got to mask that off, these edges, really well, okay? But a lot of designs out there in the stamping world are outlines, okay? So you can't just, willy-nilly stamp it wherever you want it to go. And then if you want something behind that image, you have to mask it off exact. And then you have to stamp an image wherever you want it to be. And that's where this kind of feeling, everyone's using positioners and stuff. I love the looks of those positioners, okay? Those are really convenient for like designs that are outlines, okay? But I make my designs, or try to make them tonal, okay? Even these columns right here, which are, they have to be linear to a certain extent, but I try to make as much of it tonal as I can. And as a stamp designer and renderer, okay, that's really important otherwise. In terms of the ease of use, okay? Now, it's going to be easier for you, doing careful positioning in it, but in theory, as far as the process goes, this is going to be a lot easier because you don't have to do all that type of masking. But I get it in terms of a process, though, if you're used to that. And I don't know, kind of just the notion of kind of more, a little bit more freedom of movement and positioning can be, it's just foreign, you know what I mean? But believe me, it doesn't take long to kind of unlearn those different types of processes for a certain type of application with another. It's just, you simply don't have to be that, careful about it. Okay, so here's my column here. I need a acrylic block about that big or something like that. We have all of our inks laid down here. Now, I might apply more later, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat set that now. I'm covering up my pad here so it doesn't dry out when I'm heat setting here. But we have to heat set this a pretty decent amount, okay? Because of, at least on the column portions where I'm going to be stamping an image over it, if I try to stamp a black image over the top of wet oil-based ink, it's just not going to transfer over there very well. I mean, there's certain things you can do. You can ink up your black pad where it's really super juicy, but then I would get into the danger of filling in too many of the details with a thick black ink and not getting a real you know, a crisp, nice crisp impression, you know, that's showing the details. Okay, so all right, my foil, and this is a very cheap foil. You can see it really bends like that. But what you do, I do it while it's still a little warm, is you just counterbend it, and it's going to be fine. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I'm wondering if these thinner types of papers and foils are just easier to use because of the, you know, if you have to heat set them, you know, they bend back into place very easily, where a thicker one might. A thicker one might take a little bit longer to, you know, coerce back into form, you know, where the thinner one, it's thinner, you don't have to, you're not kind of re-establishing, you know, so much of a thick fiber. Okay, so that's a little bit rippled there. Now, see, I can press this out much flatter, but I'm just doing this by hand. Remember, it's like, in some ways, it's like bending a piece of aluminum foil back into place, okay? All right, let's see. So I go a little bit. Oh, okay, this is getting, I'm getting it flatter. I'm getting more practice at this. So I'm doing it kind of this way. You go this way, you know. And then here I'm doing it at the angle. Looks like the 3/4 angle is working a little bit more. All right, that's not too bad. It's a little rippled. I mount these things anyway onto another piece of paper. You know, I usually mat them off and whatnot. Okay, so Brilliance Graphite Black. Brilliance has about 3 different blacks. I should try the other ones. I know someone that got, I think all 3 of them. They're saying that one of them has this kind of little tinge of a different color in it. It sounded kind of interesting. I thought they said red or something, or blue. Okay, this is ready to go. Let's see if I can match that up reasonably well. I don't know if I can, but I'll try to. All right. And sometimes I get my columns crooked, you know. They're a little bit angled or whatnot, you know. I'd rather have it, you know, completely vertical, but if I don't, then, hey, it's an ancient rune that's, you know, that was put up, whatever, you know, 2,000 years ago or whatever it might be. Okay, now I have a pretty firm pressure on this, and what I'm doing is I'm allowing this to transfer over a little bit more. Now, sometimes that white ink that you lay down onto the paper first, it kind of provides a foundation for these other inks to stick better. Okay, now see, that white ink applied just fine, but I was dabbing that on and kind of building it up in these little microscopic little beads of white ink, okay? But now, making impressions on this is a little bit different. Sometimes I get a little bit of fisheye, but that's usually if there's a big solid area on a stamp. Okay, that's not too bad, okay? There it is right there. Maybe I should do it a little bit more over, but see that column there? That's kind of cool. See how I only applied that ink. See, it only goes over half of it because I have the light coming on one side of it. All right? You know, so that little white area, we'll just say, well, that's just part of the column. I mean, you could stamp position it too, and that, you know, you'd be much more accurate about that. I don't know, this doesn't really bother me, and plus I'll probably bring in some extra white into there, something of that sort. over the top of it, so who cares? Okay. Let's see. I have tack and peel on my blocks, so sometimes it's not as see-through anymore. Okay, but what I was getting at, as far as my impressions, you just kind of hold this a little bit longer. You have to hold a little bit longer on your impressions on non-porous surfaces. It's as if you were stamping it on like a piece of plastic or something like that. Or on aluminum foil. Okay, it's non-porous, so you're not getting that ink absorbing into the pulp of the paper, the binder in it, the oil, transferring onto the paper as fast as, something like a, white cardstock or something of that, that sort. So hold down a little bit longer. You're kind of getting it to adhere a little bit and transfer. Okay, it's setting up a little bit. Now sometimes it fisheyes. You pull it up and it's, oh my God, it didn't stamp out in this whole big area. Okay, but don't let it be from, the absence of pressure. Sometimes it's built up and you have a puddle of ink underneath there, and you pull it off, and by kind of a suction, a vacuuming effect, it goes into the, oh my gosh, look at that one. I got that one perfect, I think. See, practice makes perfect, okay? There it is right there. Kind of. I think, I don't know, maybe I have it much more over, I don't know. I don't know if I got it right on the edge. Okay, let's see. And we have our figure here. She's going to go down right in here. Alright, that's kind of fun. This is a real simple composition. I think it's pretty cool, though, with the columns. I think this is the first time I've stamped out. I've done similar compositions before, and did one recently with a little dancing skeleton. He would be cool here for a kind of an interesting set. Alright. She is going right down here. I need her. I don't know if I used enough white, but we'll just go with it. Okay, put her down about right here. So I'm working layers, okay? So we did the white layer, and I'm doing the image layer. Okay. This image comes from an old engraving. I don't know if it's 19th century or 20th century. Okay, perfect. See her? How she shows up down there. My camera's even doing face recognition right now. It just showed a little arrow type of thing. But so she's showing up down here. Now I'm going to illuminate this much more. But what I'll do is I'm going to heat set this a little bit more, okay? And then we'll do some kind of more targeted refinements on here now that we can see the imagery. I'll make the moon a little bit lighter. When I dried this, when I heat set this, a lot of the white ink kind of darkened, okay? Because it looks much brighter. But we'll build this up where we can work our lighting more now. And then we'll decide. I was thinking some branches or something like that. Maybe it would represent ivy or something like that would be in here. I don't know. It doesn't have. I don't know what this represents. It could be like just some sort of kind of interesting garden or something like that. It doesn't have to be some sort of scene from whatever, Rome or something like that. Okay. So, anyways, look at that. Okay, let's see what we can do here in terms of a little bit of I guess we can call it lighting or tonal refinement. Okay, let's see. All right, I've let this sit. I was just gone for about 5 minutes, but maybe that's not long enough for that black to set up yet. Let's go ahead and heat set it. What we're doing is we're heat setting our layers. So we did the white in the background. Now we did the impressions. Now we're heat setting that. that curled like crazy this time. I don't know. The foil or the paper is a lot more compromised now, you know, and flexible because I bent the heck out of it before, or counterbent it. Okay. I didn't need to heat set that as long because that was an impression, not a big, slathering of ink on there, like the white was. Okay, let's see. Yeah, doing it from these angles here looks like it's working the best. I don't know. These papers have a certain grain to it, so you got to find the kind of the sweet spot in terms of which way to kind of bend it back into place. Okay, so let's start with this little figure down here. That little figure, it needs more. It needs more of a focus on it in terms of lighting. Okay. So what we'll do, that area in the back of it is just going to represent, I don't know, just more of that cloud that's happening up there. Okay, so I don't want to apply too much of this too fast. It looks like I thought my white was fairly juicy, but I think it's fairly dry. All right, so I'm kind of, dabbing this around right here, getting the right consistency on here. I want to fill up this with the right amount of ink on there. So I want a pretty decent amount of ink, but I don't want it to be sopping wet. I want it to have coverage, but I want it to go on nice and slowly. Okay, so just like on the columns, maybe on the top edge, the leading edge of the figure facing the moon, what I'm doing is I'm going to illuminate her accordingly. Okay, now you don't have to kind of invent things or have any inherent knowledge. The figure is just lighter on one area anyway, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of illuminating that area of her, if I can. This isn't like a precise tool or anything like that. Wad of cotton, right there. Speaking of that, do use cotton. Other types of synthetics or whatever, in your cotton swabs or your swabs, just don't seem to work very well for this purpose. Okay, but see, she's, now she's being illuminated by that lighting up there. Isn't that like a real kind of sensual lighting in there? I think it is. It's just like this glowing light. Okay, now on the top side of this cloud, okay, facing the moon. So you kind of add it down to keep it condensed like this, so you can kind of spread it around. Don't stay in one little area and just go dot 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 dot. Otherwise, you're going to get a big thing of kind of built up thing. But see this right here? Too many people if they first start doing this, they're kind of hitting around to spread out. But what you want to do is you kind of work in one area, and then you're kind of moving out from it, okay? So watch this right here. Hitting that area, and I'm going with a light touch, and then I use kind of a lighter touch, and I go around that space like this, okay? And see, I'm still going with that one inking, and I'm kind of working it from that heaviest application, which isn't heavy, just I'm talking relatively speaking. But see how I taper that out. I go with more, and then see with your drier touch, then you just bring it down this way, okay? Bring it out into the surrounding area like that. See, this is really dry on here, but then I'm just getting a much drier touch out there. Let's try something here, and let's see if we got that column reasonably dry. Okay, let's go with this here. This will be the easiest masking you ever did. Okay, and let's see if I can hit the, ooh, that's maybe too much. Okay, and hitting this in. It's not great for this because it's kind of like a foggy version of it, and I'm obscuring some of the detail of the stamp. But if we can just hit this kind of lightly, it might, work out pretty good. You don't have to do it over the whole thing. We're just trying to get that leading edge, okay, again, where it's being illuminated. And I might not even go down the whole length of the column. Let's see what this looks like. Right here. It looks okay. It's being illuminated slightly. I don't know if I'll do that on the other end. It's a little bit too murky. I lost the detail of the impression here. I'll kind of blot some of it off like this. Yeah, that's working. See, this ink is real malleable. You can just remove it accordingly. I don't want to remove it completely though, because I might wipe off some of the column impression too. Okay, so this cloud above the moon is being bottom lit, so I'm doing the bottom part of this cloud right here. Okay, we're kind of doing directional lighting. All right. See, this cloud right here it's right on the moon, so I'm illuminating it more. Now the moon needs to be illuminated more too. If it's illuminating these clouds really light, then the moon, of course, is going to have to be lighter than the clouds. Okay, the reflected light can't be lighter than the light source. So we'll go back and do that. Yeah, you just blend that cloud out, and then you have a really nice kind of tapered transition of that lighting right there. Look at that glowing light. It's something that foils are really, really amazing at, because I guess because we're putting this translucent layer of white over the top of it, but foils are very, very reflective and kind of mirrored-like, so that when you obscure some of it, you're not covering it up entirely with opacity, but you're doing it with translucency. So you get that light kind of showing through, and it really creates a nice kind of glow to it. All right. Okay, now let's hit that area. Let's hit that moon again. Okay, so you just come in like this. So see, you're just kind of working layers. So that's what I always try to mention, because if a lot of people see the end result, or they see a video of mine and they remember the end result, but then as they start doing it, they're thinking it doesn't look like that. Okay, but they forget kind of the beginning process of it, or about how we built up to that. Okay, and this makes it easier, that it doesn't get there instantly, okay? Kind of instantaneous result types of things, it's a little bit more precarious because things happen in an instant. So if something goes awry, you might be stuck with it. But this is something where you can just build it up, just slowly, and I don't know, kind of, it's, I guess methodically. I don't see it as kind of a super long process. Like doing this right here, it's like, I don't know, it's like meditation or something like that. Now I get if someone's doing 20 of these or something like this, they want to kind of, expedite it, move it along or something like that. But I don't know, I don't know, and this, like this, I don't know, we're going back to like finger painting. I don't know, sometimes people think this is like a complicated process, but honestly, this is, it's a different version of, finger painting. I have my finger on a cotton ball like this. I mean, it's a very raw, kind of primitive, artistically speaking, process right here. We are going back to finger painting with It's like thick paints, you know, this pigment ink, you know, working with pigment inks is like working with a very thick paint right here. All right, so anyways, that's the moon right there. I think that looks, you know, pretty decent like that. Now, the moon being as white as it is, I think it affords us the ability to go in here and bring out these, you know, kind of lighter applications, which is where this white paint pen would come in. Now, I want to do some other things on here. I think some darker, yeah, like something that would represent maybe like some ivy or something like that. I don't have ivy, but I do have a kind of a hanging leaf. I'm looking for it on my desk here. It is really time to get my desk here cleaned up and find, so I can find things. And I know all of you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I gotta pause here and find my. Actually, this one would. Okay, I was thinking of a different stamp. I just saw this one, the twisting leaves. That would actually might be even better. Okay, so we did that. Let's go with the heat setting here. Kind of weird. I went for years without heat setting anything because I was mostly working primarily with dye-based inks on cardstocks. And now, working with the foils, I'm heat setting all the time. It's like I had to borrow the heat gun from my wife. She wasn't really using it, you know, not doing too much embossing anymore. Like most people aren't really embossing anymore, but yeah. Okay, so let's add this in here. This will kind of create this nice little kind of downward curtain of it's kind of a directional visual. Okay. Things are kind of wide open. So from a visual standpoint, what people are going to usually look at when they see this is, okay, there's the moon and here's this figure right here, but this area up here is closed off. So what this does up here is it closes off the composition, so it kind of contains the composition more. And all these leaves are kind of pointing down to the figure. It's like our, you know, star of the scene. It's kind of a star of the scene, but the, you know, the moon's probably, you know, grabbing the most amount of attention. Okay, now I'm just layering this in here. I put some of it over the front of my moon. Okay, there we go. So that right there, it kind of brings things out a little bit more. I kind of like that. I think that frames it off really nicely. And let's do that again. Let's say this is, I don't know, just like it's like a garden ornament. I think that looks really good there. Let's go with some more garden ornament. Or, I don't know, just garden foliage out here. I'm saying the whole thing is garden ornament, not just, you know, these branches. Okay, I don't want to go over her face, so I'm going to be careful around there, but just using some reeds right here. This is kind of framing things off a little bit more. Okay, so there that is down there. Can't wait to format this into a card. I think it'll look really good. Okay, so let's see. I guess I should heat set this. It's just a series of heat settings here. Okay. You'll know when, it's easy to see when kind of black imagery heat sets is because it goes from kind of a gloss, darker black to a matte looking black. Okay, I have some Krylon on order right now. I think I'm getting it today, but if you want that black to look, kind of a stronger, richer black, you can just spray seal it, and it'll kind of bring back the saturation of a kind of a wet black ink. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let me shake up my pen and let's do some real fine details. Okay, I've picked out one of my Artistro very pale blue paint pens, okay, in case I want to use it on here. This is my Meows in white. There's an Artistro white too. I'm not quite sure if it's as opaque as the Meows, and I've been saying that these things are exactly alike. I mean, they look exactly alike. I gotta think it's the same man. They just use like different, I don't know, color parts in here, and then it has a different label on here. But I'm not sure if the chemistry is different or what. I doubt if it would be. It doesn't seem to make sense that it would, but okay. But what I'm getting at here is that I want to add in these little highlights. And now, see, this white pen really stands out on here, okay? Almost too much, okay? Now I'll add a little bit more white on here to match that up a little bit. But see that kind of leading edge type of thing right here where it's really capturing that light? See that right there? I mean, that really stands out, but this is at arm's distance. It's not as extreme like a bunch of crawling little kind of electronic lights or something like that, but this is what's going on right here. So there's more dots in the lighter area, okay? And then as I taper it off when it's moving into the darkness, there's just less dots, or you spread them around a little bit. Okay, so let's do that same type of thing on all of the objects in relation to the reflected light, okay? So like on the top sides of some of these clouds, I might not go to the exact edge, but we'll have some of them really reflecting some of that light like that. And it's kind of really creating a relationship between the clouds and the figure too. When you do something like this, you're putting the same type of texture and lighting onto those areas like that, okay? Now that's a little bit too extreme, so we'll mellow that out by going over it again with some white, okay? All right, so that's that. And how about on these columns here, okay? I can even put it on the side of that, where I went over it a little bit. Right. I under positioned or whatever. Okay, so on this column right here, some of this column is in like a darker area, so I don't use so much, but just a few little highlights on the sides of the column, on the inside portions like that. See that right there? That and that. It just kind of frames things off a little bit more. Okay, now the white really stands out in contrast. That's why sometimes it's good to kind of test out. Sometimes it's not the same hue. This, like a blue might not match this blue too much, but you can test it, certain parts of it out. Like here's a blue that's probably, I don't know, it's darker. There's different hues of blue, okay? There's warm blues, whatever. Cool blues. Like this one right here, maybe. See, well, that is a little bit darker. But see, like down here on the arm where I don't have any white light down in that area, with the white ink, then maybe, see, I can come in here with this darker blue and still get a little bit of a highlight type of effect, but it's not white. It's not just such an extreme highlight. Actually, that looks really good. It's more of a mellow highlight, so it's a darker highlight in the darker areas, okay? It's one of those very subtle things that, I don't know if anyone notices it if you give it to them from a visual standpoint, like something that stands out at least. But it just, it's one of those things. It's just one of those little details that kind of merges in with the background that it's supposed to. We're having this kind of merging of details where it's just very subtle. Because if it stood out, it would stand out in a, I don't know, maybe too extreme a way. Okay, so let's hit this area here. See this? Now I'm kind of mellowing out those little highlights in here, so we get the highlights, but they're just, it's just kind of a glowing little area of them. Okay, because what you're doing is you're making the background lighter and bringing it up closer to the value of the white dot, okay? So you're making the area whiter, okay, lighter, like the light dot, like that, okay? So they just don't stand out as much. So you get the benefit of them, but without the, the kind of the loudness of them. And like here on her shoulder right here, I'll do the same. And at this point in time, we're done with the heat set. We don't need to heat set anymore. I don't think I'm going to need to do that. I can't think of any other area. But I do want to use a quote stamp in here. I think it's going to go in here, or I don't know, or somewhere around the perimeter maybe. We'll format this into a nice card. Okay, so see, bringing some of this in front of the moon gives the moon a little bit more dimension. Foils are a lot of fun to play around with, I tell you. It's just really dynamic. I don't think they're better than cardstock. Cardstock's going to give us the most amount of variety because we can do any color on them. I can't, put orange over the, top of dark blue or something like that. It's not going to show up. I'm not going to do like a bunch of autumn colors and fall over dark blue cardstock, Something of that sort. But it is fun to play around with. It's kind of it's a change of pace, in terms of what's coming out of our out of our workstation or whatever. And it's just really fun to see. It's fun to see things that are just different coming out of your hands, from what we've normally seen. We're treating our kind of minds with a different visual, and it kind of expands on your range of capabilities, I guess you can say. Okay, I didn't think about this either. I forgot about this. I kind of framed things off with that. But let's go in with some black ink, and let's frame things off a little bit more around the edge. Maybe I will have to heat set this, but what I'll do is I'll do the four corners. And black on really dark blue isn't showing up that much, but it's it'll darken it a little bit. And we're talking about that kind of that world unto itself type of thing. This is where you really kind of bring somewhat of an emphasis to that type of idea when you put this vignette of darkness around your perimeter. You can do this on every one of your cards too. It might not be black, it might be just a darker color of whatever color scheme you're working with. But yeah, darker edges than the interior. And then the darker you take your edges like this, or corners, the lighter the light areas are going to seem by contrast. So she's kind of coming out a little bit lighter now that I put something darker next to her. Okay. There we go. Looks like that. See, that's a little bit darker. It's just framed things off in a very subtle way. Look at that. It's like electric or something. when you get that, it's really, you do get, it's reflected light, but it sure does look like it's, light emitting from the surface, which is what I'm always trying to go for. Okay, I forgot about that vignetting, so. So we did have to heat set it. Okay, I'm going to format this a little bit, and then we'll look at some final touches on here. And this is where it's really nice because everything gets flattened out. I use the photo stickers. Use whatever you have, But I'll put, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9, 10 on this first one. After that, I might just go with the 4 corners or something like that when I'm mounting. But to get this initial piece, flat, I do that. But this, I don't know, it's pretty flat. It's flatter now than it was after that first thing. Maybe it's because you keep heat setting it and bending it and whatnot, and I don't know, maybe it gets kind of I don't know, it develops a flexibility or something like that, where it's not just curling up initially anymore. So anyways, we'll do this and we'll do this. Okay, this is what we have here. I have formatted onto a little bit of this is like a baby blue Star Dream iridescent. That's that little border around there. And then just some dark glossy cardstock. It's a really dark blue, but you can get black these days. And the Moonlight is Sculpture. That's off of Scenic Sentiments set number 2. I thought it worked perfectly for a quote with this piece. I thought about putting that in here, but it was obtrusive, so we kept the format, and I just put it down here. I had to break that format. I could have put it underneath it, but I thought it looked better within the piece itself, so I lost a little bit of her form, like down at the base, but like down here, which I didn't want to do, but I don't know. We sacrificed for the scene, I guess. All right, now I thought what we'd do here is, I think it looks okay as is, but I want to do these little fun little glowing little orbs in here. This, okay. I'm really making them too uniform. I need to, this is what I mentioned to people before. You gotta kind of group things a little bit. So they're not so symmetrical. Okay, these are like, I don't know, they're like little fireflies or something like that. And I know they're not green or something. Actually, it wouldn't have been bad to add that hue in there, but I thought we'd just stick with the white. It's, it kind of goes along with the theme, but I do think a different color would look cool too to introduce. I don't know, you can even do a yellow in here or something of that sort. All right, I'm looking for my pack of, at any given, these aren't well-planned videos. I guess it's because there's no planning at all in them. Here we go. This is what I'm looking for right here. I've got a big pile of, well, everything on my table here, so. And then we start running out of room. It's when I'm kind of figuring things out and developing things, and if I like the way things are going, I tend not to clean out my table. And it's just a big mass of everything. Okay, so really light touch. Okay, kind of smashing and prepping my tip here. Okay, all right, and it's a little bit too frayed here. There we go. And let's just we'll bring in some of these little white little things, orbs, or fireflies to life. I don't know, it's just kind of a little whimsical little touch, don't you think? It illuminates some darker areas too. and brings a little bit more visual interest. Now, one of the subtle things that you can do too is you can hit some of these areas where it's dimmer, and then you hit some of these where it's much lighter, okay? So you can put a little bit more ink on some, so you vary it. That way you get visual diversity. And when you get to diversity, it's much more rich in terms of an overall palette, textural palette, or lighting palette from which to, reference or whatever. Okay, so I'm going in here and adding a little bit more glowing light in some of these other areas as well. Yeah, this is a little bit of fine-tuning, I guess you can say. Okay. A little bit more on her shoulder. Moonlight is sculpture. Some of these might be a little bit too extreme. Let's kind of refine again. Okay, I'm going to the clean side of my little thing, and I'm going to just wipe. I'm going to dab off some of this. They're glowing a little bit too much. Oh, maybe what I can do is I can use that blue and put the blue over the top of it, where it's a little bit more subtle. Let's go with the darker blue, like this. It's a darker blue, but when you put it over dark blue paper, it's it's a light blue in comparison. Okay, now let me take a look at that. It's like the little fireflies have come out to play. Yeah, it's just kind of fun. Okay, I think that is it. Okay. Let's add a little bit more cloud in the background. I want to vary that background a little bit in those glowing little flies. Oops, got a big glob of paint on there or something. These are all those little refinements that, those little fireflies are standing out a little bit too much. So what you do is you can, I altered them a little bit, but I'm also just making the background lighter so they don't stand out in some of the areas so much by contrast. So where I'm just kind of minimizing, well, not minimizing, but subduing the visuals of a couple of them in a given area. Okay. All right, I think that is it. This cloud is lighter now, so I can make that top of that one a little bit lighter too. Okay. Actually, it looks better. This area above her, I thought she was going to be stamped in that area, but I stamped her lower, so thus making that area in the back of her a cloud. So let's really make it a cloud then. I love putting these finishing touches on pieces. It's Those little details I really like to do. They're really fun. They just kind of tweak and alter things a little bit. It's like you're just kind of bending a corner or something like that with it. Okay, now let me take a look. Yeah, it's better. We have more cloud formations in there too. And then it brings to life these areas in here. See that area in here and here? If you just look at it like that, it was just kind of blank space, but now we've given kind of visual dimension to it. It looks like that those things are standing out from the back of the paper. And look at her. She just kind of merges in with those clouds like that, doesn't she? You know, in some ways. So it kind of really creates a kind of a relationship between the form and the clouds in the background. All right, so anyways, we have a fun little card here, I think. I don't know. And foils are fun. You know, look at that right there. You can really see the application of white and what that looks like. You see how it's brighter on the top, and then it dissipates down, so more ink on the top, and then you taper it off. More top, taper it off. Then that's just that small space like that, so you can really see what's kind of going on there. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you have fun with some foil and try this. You know, these packs at 25, you know, different colors of these foils go on sale all the time. It's buy one get one at 50% off. So I bought like a jewel pack, jewel tone pack, and the primary pack from Michaels. They're normally like $6 each or something like that. They can go as low as $3.33. So if you buy 2 packs of them, buy one, you know, at $6 and get the second one half off. It's $9 for 2 packs, so $4.50 but for 25 sheets, you know, full size, 8.5 by 11 in multi-colors. That really gives you a lot of options to play with. And this, you know, it's black and white, you know, brilliance right here. So it does open up a ton of possibilities as far as different surfaces go. You don't have to use it like this with these clouds and stuff. You can just kind of stamp on it, or you can use the foils as kind of a matting paper or something like that, you know, which is really fun just in terms of a dynamic and kind of mirrored surface for your usage purposes, whatever. And I don't know, just highly recommend it. It's just so much fun to play around with. Okay, so anyways, thanks again, and we'll see you on the next video.